Hey guys, it's Melissa. So today we're going to talk about the Marty McFly syndrome. So for those of you that love Back to the Future, it was that moment when he was on stage, he was playing the guitar, and in that moment he looked at his family picture and he was disappearing from the image. That is what I call the Marty McFly syndrome. And just in case the video didn't capture that, it's that moment on stage when, let's all be honest, Alex P. Keaton really saw that picture, his family picture, and he was disappearing. That's the Marty McFly syndrome. So why is this so important right now? So first of all, here's the whole thing. I have been career coaching since 1997 effectively. And some of you might say, well, Melissa, you were a zygote. And the truth is, I was. So I had the luxury, the privilege of working in corporations since I was 17 years old. And what I noticed back then, before I built up the armor that a lot of us have, having gone through those experiences of being in corporate settings, I had realized that people are suffering. They are sad, they're not themselves. It's almost like they're running around like robots, really trying to fit in so that they stay in their situation, whether it's a great situation or it's a shitty situation. So that's the sad piece of it. You want to stay with the familiar. Fast forward to now, this decade, post-pandemic, or maybe if you still feel like it's part of the pandemic, which I would love to talk to you about that. I wanted to just share this notion that the only way for the next generation to not suffer as much as you, nor I, nor others have, is to start treating one another as if we're actual human beings, as opposed to mechanisms through which we get stuff done. And the reason why it's so important and the reason why I'm the right person in order to really take a stand is because I'm not in the vortex. I'm not in the system. I actually can speak my mind and really share with the world what I have witnessed since 1997 all the way through this past year. And here's what I've witnessed. I've witnessed individuals who at some point in their lives were absolutely feisty, at some point in their lives would not at all have succumbed to some of the BS norms that are active and vibrant in corporations around the world. I've witnessed individuals who have done incredible things. We're talking about raised millions of dollars in capital. We're talking about, gone on stage and sang their heart out. We're talking about, pitched bands that may have sucked, but we're really in it with vibrant hearts and a lot of energy and enthusiasm. So we're talking about people who are not currently working in the organizations around the world or are reserving their humanity for their home, if that. And I want to be your voice for now, because the plan is to teach you how to use your imagination for good. The plan is for me to help you go from a state of feeling like you have no control pertaining to what happens to you by way of your emotions, some of the thinking and thoughts, and some of the behaviors with which you leverage in order to just get through the day. That entire sort of chicken noodle soup, for lack of a better phrase, is what I would love to help you now reimagine for yourself. Let me share with you a really quick story. So this weekend, what I did was I put myself into situations where I had not been in before. And so for some of you, you might be like, wow, Melissa, it doesn't really take much guts. But for me, it kind of does. So here we go. Of course, every weekend I have the option to be with my kids, watch them play video games, sit down and observe someone else live. Or the alternative, which is what I did this weekend, was on Friday, I signed up for a totally free fantasy map making class at the library. Now, full disclosure, I'm in Australia. COVID is very different than it is from a US perspective, and a lot of you are Americans. So this is going to feel unusual and weird. But it really, truly was like a pre-COVID experience, minus some mass. And I say some because our numbers are super dismal, thank God. So I feel totally blessed about that. So in that classroom, it was led by someone who's a PhD in maps. And I thought to myself, how amazing is that? Someone who got to really dive deeply into something that she found interesting as a child and further explore, deepen the knowledge of, and extend the knowledge of that particular field. That's how you get a PhD, right? So it was captivating. It was really interesting. And the conclusion that I made out of that experience was essentially that it's almost like we've been implanted into this world, even from a corporate perspective, where someone else actually drew in the borders. Someone else named the names of the different things, right? And that is the assumption that we're operating under, that we are confined, limited to their interpretations of what the environment can look like for us. So that's something that I got out of that map making class. The following day, I decided to take up kayaking lessons. Now, you might think to yourself, damn, Melissa, you have a pretty amazing life. And you know what? I'm not going to lie. I do. And that's what I want to help you create in your own parts of the world. But I do have an amazing life. But it's also a life that has been really derived by decisions, by sacrifices, and by a lot of inner work, right? So there were choices I had to make that really reflected more my values as opposed to the other values that could have pulled me in a completely different direction. All that to say, took kayaking lessons. What did I get out of that experience? So the evening before, I was thinking to myself, holy shit, what did I just get myself into? I was having almost like nightmares. I was like, what if I get bitten by a shark? What if I capsize? What if this whole kayaking thing puts me in a place where I am freezing cold? I don't know why I get really freezing cold. I'm like in Australia, but I've lived in the Northeast. Anyway, that's just me. Point of the matter, maybe I'm just need to be more insulated. Point of the matter, I had these nightmares and I was so frightened. And so the next day came and I had to just jet out of my house as you do when you have three kids and your husband kind of switches up plans. So I had to jet out of my house in the morning and then I got to the actual harbor. And the serenity that I felt in that moment prior to getting into a kayak was astounding. It's something I would have missed out on. All of that to say, what I got out of that experience is that a lot of times we imagine ourselves out of amazing situations. Why not imagine yourself into an amazing situation? It almost seems like we really reserve our use of imagination for thinking about the worst case scenario, which is totally an evolutionary thing. Thank you, Darwin. I get it. Survival of the fittest. However, there's also the potential that when you're using your imagination for something that feels pretty crappy and really constricting, you can actually reconfigure the way that you use your imagination so that you start feeling a bit of levity in your life and in your days. So all of that to say, that's where we're going. That's where the ship is turning, or the kayak in my case. And I had an amazing time. The scariest creatures that I saw during that kayak learning experience were these two. I actually saw a seal eating its fish. It's like food. That was one. And then super scary was like the cutest puppy on the shore. I mean, it was just like something that you just wanted to like go and cuddle with the little puppy. So all of that stress, all of that anxiety, all of that, oh my God, I'm going to get eaten by a shark for nothing. So those are the things that I intend to teach you. And if this is not for you, if you're just like, you know what, Melissa, I really just want to get some resume tips, LinkedIn tips, I'm not offering that right now in this group at all. We're going to go in this direction because I feel that once I light up that spark in your life, the world just opens up for you in ways that you would not have imagined before. I think that the key to feeling delicious, the key to feeling on fire, the key to being back to that person who you were when you were 18, 19, 20, if you felt like you were feisty, if you felt like you were a spitfire, if you felt like you had the energy and enthusiasm and you were super inspired by your own life, that's who needs to come out again, because that's the person who can save you during these moments of feeling down, sad, bored, or like you're settling, or like you have no options. The article that I wrote that I just shared with you a bit of a snippet, so the Marty McFly syndrome, that article is now on Thrive Global. And in that article, I share how I have noticed so many individuals, professionals, outstanding people who will bend over backwards and do things for people leaders or their bosses, but will not reserve not a drop of energy to do the same for them. I also shared in that article the simple fact that you can actually add some spark excitement and energy to your life experience on a daily basis. A lot of people speak of this inflection point, like if it's this thing that comes out of the sky and happens only like during midlife and like the end of life. But I call BS on that. You could actually create your own inflection points every single day by way of the decisions that you make. But step one is understanding that at some point, that person who you were is still in there. And I want to almost run like a missing persons campaign. I want to help you find that person again. So that this way you don't need to watch Netflix to forget your life experience. So that you don't need to be drinking alcohol. So that this way you're not thinking about the shitty comments that you heard at work. So that this way you don't need to numb yourself with all the other distractions that exist, such as the internet and such. That's the plan, that's the mission, and if you're interested in continuing this voyage, stay on board, hit notifications, and definitely let me know. Give me some feedback. Go ahead and share your private message because I am here to help.